Hey, welcome to the CMO Whisper Show. I'm your host, Steve Olensky. Part marketing practitioner, part ad agency veteran, part journalist. I was a writer for Forbes for 10 years. I've had so many insightful conversations over the years with business leaders, to athletes, to celebrities, to, of course, CMOs. The only difference now is instead of sharing those insights through written form, I'm doing it this way. My guest this week is Jess Shirra, a fractional CMO and the founder of the Fractional CMO School. Her days are spent supporting her seven-figure clients, helping them grow their membership and core businesses. Additionally, she mentors other marketers to help them launch and grow their own fractional CMO business. With more than 15 years in the field, she's led marketing for both high-growth startups plus well-known global brands such as Lululemon, Pottery Barn, Jenna Kutcher, Strava, and Deloitte, to name just a few. Jess's philosophy is rooted in customer-first marketing, which she believes makes marketing and sales effortlessly and cultivates fiercely loyal brand advocates. Jess, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It is really my pleasure. Your background is incredible. I really can't wait to dive into a lot of different things, but I want to start with, and it's become a bit of a buzzword, at least I think so, over the past, 3 to 5 years. You tell me, the term fractional CMO. How do you define that term?
Yeah, great question. Because I do think people call themselves fractional CMOs and do different things than what I do. I really see the fractional CMO as the head of marketing for a company. So when I'm talking to clients or when I'm talking to people in my fractional CMO school, the way I explain it is that we are responsible and overseeing marketing performance. So it's really our role to understand the larger, bigger goals of a company and then understand how marketing fits into that and how marketing is going to drive those forward. So at the end of the day, it's really about are we moving the right needles? Is our team focused on the right things? Is the work being done well, meaning that the right, KPIs are being moved forward?
So what's the plus side to a brand hiring a fractional CMO versus a quote full-time CMO?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the company and team size. The clients that I work with, they just don't need somebody in a full-time CMO seat. There's just not that amount of strategy and oversight work needed. So it really allows them to have somebody come in with a really high level of expertise, but they're not having to have, a full-time employee at those, full-time salary rates or all of the other things that cost you when you hire somebody full-time.
So, how does it bring it started, in terms of leveraging fractional support for marketing?
Yeah, everyone does it really differently. The way we work with clients is we almost always start with strategy. So we dig into their business. We really want to understand their bigger picture for the long term. What have they done in the past that's worked and not worked? What's the current state of their marketing? So what's being done really well? Where is there the biggest opportunity or low-hanging fruit? We also look at teams. So do they have the right people in the right seats? Are they measuring the right things? Do they understand their marketing? So we really look at all of those things. And then we put a plan together because that really allows us to have a really comprehensive view and then say, okay, this is what I think we should be focused on in the next 6 to 12 months. Because in my opinion, the biggest problem with marketing is when people are trying to do too many things. And then they end up with a really watered down execution of everything. And nothing's actually moving the needle. And I see that a lot of clients being like, oh, we tried that and that didn't work. Or, this thing over here is not performing. And then you go dig in and it's actually the execution of that strategy that's not being done well, or they don't have the right resources on it or things like that. So it's really allowing them to have a laser focused plan and the confidence that the things they're doing are actually the right things for their business.
Do you see any differences in approaches in brands when it comes across the different industries you work for? Or is it all pretty much the same things in terms of a marketing 101 approach, what works, what doesn't work? Or are you seeing differences across industries?
Yeah, that's a great question, Steve. I would say that yes and no. So we work with a pretty defined niche of customer. So we have either e-commerce clients or we have influencers or creators that have digital products. So by digital products, I mean memberships, masterminds, courses, or, some downloadable PDFs or guides. So usually at the highest level, there's definitely some overlap in the strategies that work for those types of brands and businesses, but we always take a case by case approach because every client is going to be really different. For e-commerce, there might be a need to build, a little bit more brand content. Often I find the team and leadership teams in e-commerce lanes are generally very sales focused, which of course they're going to be, but they need the most help building up the brand side of things, the brand identity, the things that are going to sort of help them grow organically and build an audience that's loyal outside of just the product. And then on the creator side, what we see is typically those types of businesses that are doing well, that are in the 7-figure range, which is who we work with, they usually have a little bit of an it factor. So something about them that is a little bit magnetic that people like. So they don't really have a problem with like organic audience growth. So growing their email list, growing social, and just all of that side of their business. Where we usually see room for opportunity is around like building up their paid marketing strategy or looking at things that are a little bit more like data driven. So sometimes we'll come in and they'll be like, we're tracking sort of the basic things, but we don't really know what channel is driving revenue for us or where in the funnel our customers are dropping off. So it's kind of about like fine tuning for that set of customer. So there's a little bit of same across the board, but definitely unique strategies per client.
Exactly. Okay. That makes sense. There's some fundamental things that are applicable regardless of industry. And then there's things that change based on the industry. That makes perfect sense. I'm curious, how is your relationship, or any fractional CMO for that matter, with the rest of those in the C-suite? And what I mean by that is the companies you work with as a fractional CMO, I'm going to make the assumption, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that these same companies have quote unquote full-time people in the rest of the C-suite.
Sometimes there are other fractionals, but usually there's at least a handful of people in other C-suite roles that we work really closely with. So I think that's a great question and good reminder to, just fractional CMOs across the board. And something that we teach in fractional CMO school as well is like, how do you come into a new client and do it in a way that feels, integrative and you're building relationships. So we particularly at Navi, my agency, we put a big emphasis on relationship building with both the C-suite and the marketing team. So right away, we're doing one-on-ones and getting to know the team, trying to understand as well, like, okay, what's their role and how do we fit into that? Because we also want to be sensitive to the fact that there may be some people that feel a little bit threatened by somebody new coming in, and then there might be some people that have relief and they're like, oh great, I'm so glad this person's here and they're going to elevate the marketing side of things. So it's just, I think about having empathy and focusing on relationship building.
Yeah, I'm just curious from a human nature perspective. Do you get, and it sounds like you get all different, not all different, but different types of engagements or responses from people going, I'm so glad you're here, to, and I'm not I'm not asking you to name names by any means, but do you get those who kind of have that, well, you're not going to be here that, for the long term. What do I care?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I think especially because the fractional space in marketing, anyways, is relatively new. And I definitely have seen it grow over the last few years. There is sometimes a little bit of, confusion or questions around like, what is this role? How long are you here? Like, how do we work together? So again, we really try to make sure we're spending time understanding the people that we're working with and getting to know them on a personal level, and then explaining to them how we're going to work together ongoing, and just making sure that as we continue to work together, there's regular touch points. We're checking in not only on the work, but on the relationship and making sure that they feel supported, it feels collaborative, all of those types of things.
When you leave an engagement, are you ever involved with a given company when they go to hire a full-time CMO?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. We've placed marketing heads or marketing leads and then kind of phased ourselves out. I think for us, that doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's not a bad thing. I think, it's usually a good sign that the company has grown enough to need somebody full time. So it's actually something that we do help with and enjoy supporting on.
And do you ever get asked to stay on full time at a given role?
Yeah, we have been asked that. Personally, I don't want to do that. I was in full-time corporate roles for marketing for 12 years before I started this business. And as much as I liked it at that phase, I really love the fractional side of things. I think for me, I really enjoy the variety. I really enjoy the challenge of it. And I just think for me, it brings like a lot more of a dynamic perspective to the work that I do than being in a business kind of on a day-to-day basis.
Keeps it interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, and thank you for that. I'm just fascinated by the life of a fractional CMO. So I want to pivot. What are we? April. We're recording this in April. Oh my gosh, it's April already. All right. So already through first quarter. But I want to touch on some trends that you're seeing and see if I'm kind of seeing the same things. But I think it's fair that we have to start with the elephant in the room, as I fondly call it, which is AI.
Yeah.
It's gotten to the point sometimes, Jess, where I'll do a word association with my guest and go, AI, marketing, go. Like,
Yeah.
what does it mean? And from your lens, what are you seeing? What are you hearing when it comes to AI and marketing?
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of AI in marketing. I think that if you're not leveraging it, no matter what your role is in marketing, you are going to get left behind. It's something that I think allows everybody to work faster and smarter. And I definitely don't see it as like a replacement. It's a tool to make us better at what we're already doing. So I am a massive fan and I use it all day, every day for work on my business as well as work on clients' businesses.
Are you, by the way, you use the four-letter word, which I think is the best way to describe AI, and it's a tool.
Yes.
So you talk about it from your business, but what about from your clients? Are they asking you, hey, are you using AI? How are you using it? Or how should we use AI? Are they looking from you to help them?
Yeah, I would say it depends on the client, but I would say across the board there's some level of interest. So some clients are really eager and want to be training the teams on how to use it, and then some clients are just curious about, like, does this apply to my business? Is there ways we could be using it? And I always try to just get them to dip their toes in and start to get a feel for it. And I give lots of examples of how I use it and how I use it as a tool and a jumping off point for things. And I think that depending on, level of comfort with technology and things like that, some people take off with it really quickly and others are still kind of getting used to being in the habit of using it.
Yeah. With what I'm hearing is a lot of marketers kind of have that, and I use the pool analogy, you're always going to have some, no matter what the new shiny tool is, they're going to dive right into the deep end.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have some in the baby pool just dipping their toe, and then some more in the middle. And the sense that I get from everybody I talk to is more towards the baby side of the pool, but knowing they can't wait much longer to wade into deeper waters, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing as well.
And it's that, and I get the overwhelming sense too that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is there almost seems to be a need for an educational aspect for AI when it comes to marketing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I've actually seen, I probably see it because I'm so immersed in this world, but I've seen people come out with AI guides or AI courses or AI, freebies so that you can learn how they use it. I'm starting to see that kind of across the board in marketing. And I actually do teach about it a little bit in fractional CMO school. And then I have guides for my clients as well. But I agree. I think that usually what I see when I first start talking to a client about their experience using it is that they're not happy with it and they don't think it works well. And then once I start digging into how they're using it, it's all like, it comes down to just sort of like misuse of the tool. Like if you were to go into Excel and just kind of stare at it and be like, create a whatever kind of projection of my revenue next year with a graph, like you can't just talk at it. Like you have to know how to use and manipulate the tool, and it's capable of a lot of things, but you need to know how to use it. And so I totally agree. Some education around how to use it really well and how to get the best from it. And when I find people start using that is when they start kind of understanding the power behind it.
Okay, so let's look at some other trends. And by the way, I don't even know if I consider AI a trend, because just the word trend can connote that it could come and go. AI is not going anywhere.
No.
But what other trends are you seeing or are you predicting do you think are going to happen over the rest of 2024?
I'm seeing a massive uptick in people using automations in chat. So I think it really kind of took off last year. I don't know if you've heard of ManyChat. It's one tool. I'm seeing a lot of that. And I think it's kind of hitting a little bit of an inflection point right now where it really took off last year and I saw it work really well for some of our clients, but I think it has to be done the right way because people still crave authenticity and a real human on the other side of their interaction with a brand. And I think that I'm starting to see people jump on this train of automating, messages and inboxes, but just doing it in a completely wrong way. So it's about knowing how to pick and choose what you automate. And then when is the time and place for a real human to be on the other side having conversation with a potential customer.
Interesting. That kind of the opposite side of AI, the human side.
Yes, exactly. So that's probably one of the biggest, I would say.
Okay. Anything else come to mind in terms of what you're hearing and trends or you predict is going to happen?
I think I was seeing this a little bit last year. I think we're going to see a shift in email marketing and probably even email funnels and sort of how they work for sales and conversion. I think with this shift in content in terms of like TikTok and threads and things like that, like content becoming shorter and less perfect and more authentic. People don't really want really long form content in a lot of instances. They're really looking for like that quick, authentic, kind of real behind the scenes lens. And so with email marketing, there's been such a trend, especially in the creator space, for these long kind of storytelling, long form content emails. And I think we're going to start to see a shift toward shorter content, but more value packed. So less of the like, this is my life story and more of a, okay, I'm showing up in your inbox and providing you with like massive value.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. What are you hearing about, if anything, the pending, and it looks like it's finally going to happen when Google's going to, third-party cookie deprecation. So basically, Google's going to eliminate third-party cookies.
Quite honestly, I'm not super worried about it. I think there was so much buzz around that when Facebook made its changes, and I think the industry has adjusted. And it's, things like paid marketing still work. It's just done in a little bit of a different way. So I definitely think there will be some growing pains and people adjusting to sort of the new normal, but I'm not really worried about it. I think that there's probably going to be some semblance of like opting in to sharing the information you want to share. Well, theoretically, if your audience shrinks, but they are like the most engaged and they're saying like, I want to be here and I want you to market to me, you're just going to see better results. So I think it's actually a really good thing.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's going to, and I've written a lot about this. It's going to force brands to create better content. It's forcing brands to, and if you notice over the last, 12 to 18 months, when Google finally decided, because they kept pushing off the date when they would, deprecate third-party cookies, a lot of brands have launched loyalty programs. And they're doing that to collect more first-party data because they know their third-party cookies going away. So it speaks to what you said about being able to capture data and on that first-party side versus, relying on the cookie to then deliver an ad, because that's going to go away.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing I keep seeing too is influencer marketing. And I would love your thoughts on that. Does that come up with any of your clients? Do you offer that as an option based on the client if it's the right fit?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've been working with and in the influencer marketing industry for a long time. I used to run it when I was working with Lululemon. And then on the creator side of our clients, a lot of them could be considered influencers as well. Like take Jenna Kutcher, for example. She has lots of brand partnerships, or sort of, you could call them like affiliate or brand partnerships, where she gets compensation based on sales. And so I don't think that's going away at all. I think it's been around for a long time and it's just evolving. I think it can work really, really well for brands. And I almost always have some semblance of brand or influencer marketing integrated into strategy. I actually like to call it like borrowing other people's audiences or getting on other people's stages, because I think the power in it is when you find a relationship that's mutually beneficial. So brand and influencer align and it's not just transactional, it's actually really authentic. Then not only does the brand get in front of a whole collection of their ideal customer,
Hmm.
and coming from a person who that audience already knows, likes, and trusts. So, for example, let's say, you needed, I don't know, an agency or some other connection, a copywriter. You and I know each other. If I were to make a recommendation to you, that would come with a lot more weight than if someone just popped into your LinkedIn messages cold. So you already have that initial trust and the initial willingness to kind of investigate when you have those types of relationships.
And look, it's relationships, right? At the end of the day, which I
Yeah.
know sounds like a cliche, but that will never change.
No, no. I think what is I mean, it's kind of like a very small part of it anyways now, but the thing that's probably going to go away because it just doesn't work is the really transactional relationships. I have some brands who are kind of playing with like TikTok influencers, and some of the biggest influencers on there, for example, if they partner with a brand and they're just like, oh, buy this, I don't know, cell phone case or buy this, whatever, those types of posts and that type of content just doesn't convert. Like it gets barely any engagement. There's hardly any traffic. It doesn't drive the sales they're looking for, even if that influencer has a massive following and generally is pretty engaged. And I think the reason it doesn't work anymore is because people see right through that. Like they know it's a sponsored post. They start to lose trust with the actual influencer because they think, okay, this person's just going to tell me something's amazing because they're getting paid. And I know they don't actually really use this in their day to day life. So I think on both sides, it actually hurts the brand and hurts the influencer. And that type of partnership, I think we're going to see less and less of.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You mentioned the word launch earlier, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on when you're developing a strategy for a launch of a given brand, what that looks like and what other marketers can learn from that.
I would say it's different client to client, but across the board, what we look at and what we're planning is our messaging phases. So what usually there's some sort of a pre-launch phase, and I'll talk about sort of the creator space because I find those launches are a little bit more complex and a little bit more interesting than just an e-commerce launch. Within the creator space, we always like to give a pretty big window, usually about 6 weeks, to do a pre-launch phase where what we're doing in that moment in time is educating our audience on a given topic so that
Mm.
they have 6 weeks to learn about that topic and understand all of the different facets of it, so that when we start launching our offering or our product or our membership, we're not having to educate them on the problem. They're already problem aware because we've kind of pulled them in with the wider net content and taught them and kind of showed them their blind spots. So then once we go into the actual selling phase, the launch phase, which is typically a few weeks, they're already like, oh yeah, okay, this is a problem for me. And I can already see how this channel or this thing or this asset could be a solution for me. And they're ready to buy. So while we're actually launching, what we're doing from a messaging perspective is actually sharing social proof. So sharing stories of transformation around how someone else just like them solved that exact problem through this product offering, and here is where they are now. So sharing stories like that, starting to kind of get ahead of some of the objections potentially around price or will this work for me, and kind of getting ahead of that. So that's what we can focus on during the actual launch if we've done our job in the pre-launch phase. And then as far as like planning that out strategically, we look at all of the different channels that might make sense to launch on. And this depends on kind of the size of the brand, but almost always there's an email component, website component, and then social media component. And so social will for sure depend on the size of the brand in terms of like, are we going big on one channel or 5? How much content are we putting out on a daily, weekly basis? Are we doing any live events, like live free trainings? All of that really is quite specific to the actual client.
So let's pivot to your career, if we can. I'm always curious when I interview somebody who, and putting you on the spot, I admit it, is there any one person who's had a really bigger or larger impact than anyone else in your career?
I would say yes. I have a coach who I hired almost 3 years ago now, and I'm still working with her. I hired her initially to help me make more money. I thought that she could just help me grow my business and make a lot of money. That was what I had in my mind when I hired her. And I had no idea the amount of mindset work and kind of inner work that I would get into with her, and kind of the ripple effect that would have. And it like undoubtedly has helped me hit my revenue goals and then some. But it was just such an unexpected, deeper layer of working with her. She's actually a mindset and business coach. And I think I just didn't really, I thought I was somebody who did inner work and kind of knew a lot about those things, but it wasn't until working with her that I realized like, okay, I still have a lot of work to do. And for me to actually have the kind of business that I'm envisioning, I need to evolve into like a better version of myself. And so that's been profoundly impactful on both my business and my personal life working with her.
Okay, wrapping it up, this has been an incredible conversation. I am a massive music fan, and music plays a big role in my life, both professionally and personally. And there's one song in particular that really, really hits a chord with me, and it's called Lean on Me. And the lyrics have always resonated, connected with me on many different levels. So I want to ask you, putting you on the spot, part 2, is there any song lyric? Is there any music, any title? Group, concert, anything musically related that means just a little more to you?
That's a really easy one for me. I am a massive Taylor Swift fan, and I love her music, but kind of beyond that, I think she's an incredible writer and an incredible businesswoman. And there's so many just invaluable marketing lessons that everyone can learn from her around, connecting with your audience, building a brand that just transcends what you actually sell. So yeah, I'm a massive fan of her from so many different angles.
Well, listen, this has been such an amazing conversation. I knew it would be. You are fascinating. I love your work as a fractional CMO. That work has always fascinated me. So I get a lot of respect for what you do.
Thanks so much, Steve. It was really great chatting with you.
It is totally my pleasure. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And again, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the CMO Whisperer Show. I hope you shared this episode with your friends. And if you have not already, please subscribe to be kept up to date on all the latest episodes. And if you're so inclined, leave me a review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you.